Good afternoon. We are thrilled to be presenting this webinar tutorial on the sections AI and Economic Justice Survey. This panel is sponsored by the ABA section of Civil Rights and Social Justice and is one of many in series of rapid response webinars. We are actively planning additional programming on a variety of issues, so please visit americanbar.org/CRSJ for more updates on these programs. During today's program, we encourage you to ask questions of our panelists through the Q&A, not the chat function. If you do not see these controls, please ensure that your screen is not on idle. I will be monitoring the Q&A and we will be doing our very best to answer your questions, time permitting. We will be sharing a recording of this program with everyone who has registered so that you can share it widely with your networks. I'm now going to hand it off to Ms. Marilyn Harbur for introductions.
Thank you, Ribbon. I'm Marilyn Harbur, and I'm a council member of Civil Rights Social Justice Section and a co-chair of the Economic Justice Committee. And our committee, along with, and certainly the Privacy Law Committee is foremost in this, we have developed this AI survey, and we are so pleased that you are taking an interest in it. Now, before I turn it over to my co-chair, Jim Pearson, I'm going to just let you know who we have to thank for doing all the work on this survey. And certainly the people in the Privacy Law Committee, Alan Butler, Chris Fraschella, Lakshmi Gopal, who has been a member of both of our committees. So she's done a lot of work on this. And Susie Bernstein, and of course, Ruben Roy. Dean Alfred Mathewson has also been a very active committee member, and we'll hear from him in a moment too. And last but not least, Grant Fergusson, who will be describing this survey to you. He has done a tremendous amount of work on this and is the one you should turn to for questions. And I would not want to leave out our chair of the Civil Rights Social Justice Section, Juan Thomas. So, Jim?
Thank you, Marilyn. And I want to thank everyone as well for their interest and participation in the AI Economic Justice Survey. The purpose of the AI survey is to identify ways that artificial intelligence and machine learning through automated data systems may in particular harm individuals from low income and marginalized populations, and who thus may be at greater risk to unfair, deceptive acts and practices. As one of the commissioners of the Federal Trade Commission, Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, has noted in a recent article on algorithms and economic justice in the Yale Journal of Law and Technology, the potential transformative power of algorithmic decision-making runs the risk of serious harm if misused. She goes on to note that algorithmic decisions can produce biased, discriminatory, and unfair outcomes in a variety of high-stakes economic spheres, including employment, credit, healthcare, and housing. Our intent is to gain understanding to the question of how does AI impact the legal rights of low-income communities. To that end, our survey is designed to capture what you are observing as practitioners of the law and advocates for civil rights from your varied experiences. The aim of the CRSJ's AI and Economic Justice Project is to provide data and resources to help lawyers and impacted communities. And by doing so, further advance ABA policy on AI, provide educational materials and webinars to lawyers and the public on the legal rights impacted, and set the groundwork for further research in this critical emerging area of the law. I now turn it over to Dean Mathewson to share his perspective.
Thank you for tuning in to this webinar. The AI and Economic Justice Project is an urgent task of the American Bar Association Civil Rights and Social Justice Section. I am Alfred Mathewson, a representative from the Corporate Social Responsibility Law Committee. And I want to urge you to take the survey. It is meant to help lawyers, help low-income and marginalized communities, and help them understand the automated decision-making systems around those communities and help them to navigate how those systems impact their lives and legal needs. We encourage you to take the several minutes it will take to complete one or more sections of the full survey. The ABA's undertaking this project, and your participation is a statement that the legal profession will not leave low-income and marginalized communities behind as the law develops and evolves on the use and application of AI in everyday life. Your participation will be extraordinarily appreciated by those communities. Take the survey. Take the survey and pass the link on to your friends, colleagues, researchers, and others through emails as well as social media. I will now turn things over to Grant Fergusson, who is going to tell you more about the structure of the survey and how you can take it. But by all means, take the survey. I turn it to you, Grant.
Thank you so much, Dean Mathewson, and thank you to all of our introductory speakers today. I will be sharing a brief presentation about our survey and then open it up to audience questions. So please feel free to use the Q&A function in Zoom to write any questions you have about the survey or the goals we have for it. The ABA AI and Economic Justice Survey, as the introductory speakers have said, is a broad undertaking to understand how AI is impacting both lawyers in the low-income and marginalized communities many of us serve. Today, I'll be discussing the survey and how you can take it now and over the next few months in order to help this really important project move forward and impact the way that the ABA can help. First and foremost, the survey is intended for a wide audience. You do not need to have AI expertise to take this survey. It is meant to both inform you of many AI tools we see today and to gather insights and information that you may have about your own experiences and the experiences of the people that you serve. The responses will be kept confidential and anonymous when you take the survey, so please feel free to be honest and open in your responses. Anything and everything you include will be useful for us as we gather the information and produce products, policy manuals, webinars, educational materials. You may be asking yourself, what are the AI systems that we're talking about? And I want you to be confident in your responses, regardless of your expertise or knowledge coming in. The questionnaire is using the term automated system instead of AI system to capture a broad array of different technological tools that we may think of as AI or automation. These are tools that are designed to aid or replace human decision-making at all stages of the work that we do, the work that are impacting our clients, and the work that is impacting marginalized populations around the country. There are several forms of these systems, everything from risk assessment tools to student monitoring and facial recognition systems to new technologies like ChatGPT. But don't worry if you don't have a background in this already. When answering the questionnaire, please consider the term automated system broadly. And if you're unsure whether a system you have encountered is an automated system, please include it in your responses. We'll be going through each in turn, and anything you can provide will be helpful in both understanding what lawyers know and understanding how we can best move forward. The same is true for how the survey defines client. Often you will see the word client in questions, but I understand that there are many lawyers who may not have direct clients or who may be interacting with automated systems in non-client situations. When answering your survey, please consider not only clients you directly represent as a lawyer, but also people, groups, or organizations that your legal work supports through other means. We're really trying to be as inclusive as possible in the responses that we receive. So please feel free to include as much information as you are comfortable. Now, on to what the survey looks like. There are two broad sections to the survey. After a brief biographical information section, you'll be asked to click a variety of specific legal issue areas or practice areas that you have experience or knowledge about. Importantly, no question in the survey is required. And if you don't know the information, please feel free to skip it. Only include the sections here that you feel comfortable asking additional questions on. Once you go through the biographical questions, you'll be given a few sections based off the legal issues or practice areas that you've selected with specific questions about how automated systems might impact the work that you do in those legal issue areas or impact clients who are facing issues in those practice areas. After each specific question section, there is a general question section for a catch-all of sorts. Any information that you haven't been able to provide that you want to will be available to provide in that second general question section. We encourage you to flip through this section and the entire questionnaire as you're going through to answer questions that you feel comfortable with. You are always able to move back and forward in the section freely. And again, there is no requirement to answer any questions. So please feel free to move about the questionnaire, whatever would be most useful for you in your daily life. Again, you do not have to answer every question. To highlight what this looks like in practice, you may receive a text box like this if you try to move forward without answering the question. Feel free to ignore this. Feel free to come back to this question. The questionnaire will remain open for a full week after you start, and the questionnaire will also be available to take for at least 2 months. So there is no rush to take this, but please, once you do, know that this is a questionnaire we are hoping to fill out within a week. Within the questionnaire, there are two main types of questions you'll see. One are checkboxes. These may look like a multiple choice question, or they may be along a sliding scale. But please answer to the best of your ability off of these questions. There are also a variety of optional text box questions where you can include more information, including questions you might have about the survey and the information and experiences that you bring to it. Many of the questions will also include an other box. And you'll see on the screen that these other boxes have small text boxes included. If you are comfortable and want to include more information when selecting other, please feel free to do so there. We'll see what you write in those text boxes. Now, before I open it up to a broad audience question section, I want to highlight two small procedural questions that we have often received from people while workshopping this questionnaire. The first is, can you go back and change your responses? The short answer is yes. Once you start a survey, your survey response will remain open and available for you to edit for a full week. If you go back to change your responses, that week will start over. So you will have as much time as you need to go back to your questionnaire, switch between questions and sections until you feel confident in your responses and want to submit your response. The second question is what to do if you don't know an answer or don't understand a question. Throughout this questionnaire, there will be various questions designed to get at specific technical knowledge or experiences that may not resonate with your own experiences as a lawyer. Please feel free to ignore those questions, leave them blank, and move on to the next section. If you're unsure about how a question responds to your own experiences or knowledge, feel free to put whatever information you think is relevant to that question. We will review it, and any information that is useful and relevant to the work that we're doing, we will include in our analysis. So please feel free to include as much or as little as you feel comfortable. Now with that, I will stop sharing my screen and open it up to audience questions. I'll also invite everyone else who are our panelists today to respond to questions if they come up. I'll start with a question that we have in the Q&A from Priscilla Orta. Thank you so much for providing this question. The question is, how can we attorneys figure all of this out? I'm a millennial and a nonprofit immigration lawyer. Anything that can help low-income folks get access to justice is awesome, and I consider myself pretty tech savvy. However, all I know is ChatGPT. about ChatGPT is you shouldn't use it to translate, which I never would do anyways. Where and how can we learn? This is a really good question. The initial response is no need to do any background research to fill this questionnaire out. If you don't think you have a lot of experiences with automated systems, still open the questionnaire, look at some of the examples we provide. We try to be specific when we can about the sorts of things that we're looking for. And if you come up with anything after the fact, you can always reach out to us at crsj@americanbar.org. This is something that is often difficult to see from a lawyer's perspective, and we understand that. So anything that you think is questionable or uncertain, or if there are things like ChatGPT that you know about that might raise issues that are relevant to your work, we would love to see that there. So for example, in your question, knowing that you shouldn't use ChatGPT to translate for your clients is valuable information for us. And it's not something that everyone knows. So I promise that you have relevant information and expertise that we can draw on as we build up our resources. I see another question from Suzanne Gilliam. Thank you so much. The question is, knowing nothing about the survey, I thought this would be on a tremendous possibilities AI brings to the ability for affected communities to have access to justice, and for lawyers to provide more for clients by using AI techniques to speed up appropriate tasks. Are you planning on spreading out into these more positive areas? That's a great question. The questionnaire is designed to cover both positive and negative impacts of automated systems. So I apologize if my presentation didn't make that clear. Throughout the questionnaire, the questions are designed to provide an opportunity to give your own knowledge and experiences around the benefits of AI as well. It really is meant to encapsulate everything that we could possibly learn from how AI is being used and how it's impacting people. This is also the start of a longer process to build out resources around this. So if you would like to be more involved in this and figure out ways that we can use the resources and information we're learning from this questionnaire to explore benefits more, please feel free to reach out. We would love to talk to you about that. All right, I see a third question here, which may be better suited to another one of our panelists today. The question is, what prompted the survey? What are the broad contours of the concerns that we're seeing, the cons of AI as it relates to people of color? Does anyone else feel comfortable answering that?
Grant, I'll start. And I simply want to remind people that the purpose for this survey is so that the ABA can develop policy or programs or educational tools that address the needs of low-income and marginalized people. It is not, the survey isn't the end in itself. We really want to obtain this knowledge so that we can then move on to the next step, which is to address these issues. So if you have any thoughts in that regard, please add those to the survey.
I'll also briefly add Lakshmi Gopal, who is not on the webinar presenting with us today, has done an incredible job over many, many months getting the project to the point that it is today. She has worked directly with clients who are facing these issues, has been thinking about it for months and months, and brought this to our attention as something worth delving into further. So this is really the culmination of many months of research and informal discussions with experts and ABA members, and trying to figure out the contours is an ongoing effort, as Marilyn said. So this is part of a larger project and one that will inform other efforts around how AI is impacting marginalized communities and how we as lawyers can navigate those impacts, both in the beneficial realm as well as the cons. If that didn't answer your question fully, please let me know in the chat and we'll try to add more to that.
And I would just add as well, with respect to the question on the AI potential for harm and impact, would be, the issue of transparency that arises with respect to AI and being able to understand what data is being used and what the determinants are being used and whether that's impacting low-income and marginalized communities in various areas in criminal justice system, within public benefits, within credit, within housing, and so forth. And that's been some of the drivers. And just as the White House's Science and Technology Group has set forth a Bill of Rights, the Federal Reserve and the Federal Trade Commission and others have been looking into the impacts of AI to make sure that it is truly transformative and positive in nature, and we get those benefits with the appropriate guardrails to protect individuals' legal rights.
All right, I'll move on to the next question in the Q&A box from Avery Miller, who asks, are you aware of anyone working on AI and legal research tools, e.g. using AI in public records to create a public-facing tool to analyze court orders, impacts, trends, etc.? This questionnaire was at one point meant to cover some of the legal research and academic uses of AI, but it is a broad-ranging subject. And so we had to focus on 8 legal issue areas, as well as a general section. So issue areas involving legal research and academia, as well as certain other legal topics like copyright law and intellectual property. Were not specifically targeted in our first section of the survey, but please feel free to include any information, knowledge, experience you have with that in the general section at the end of the questionnaire. To answer your question specifically, I'm actually not aware, but also I'm not always the most expert on all the different applications. So one of the benefits of this survey is trying to crowdsource some of that information so we can learn more about the different applications to it. If you know anyone who's doing that, please feel free to include that in the questionnaire. We'd love to read it. Okay, I see another question from Jackson Chen in the Q&A. The question is, does the project and survey also seek to identify cyber risks and numerous ethical issues for advocates and stakeholders too? The questionnaire has some questions related to AI ethics and the use of AI responsibly in a variety of different industries. It has questions that touch on some of the cyber risks as well, but there is not a dedicated section. So again, this is an opportunity to share your experience through some of the optional text boxes in the questionnaire. It's something that we are actively thinking about and will hopefully have opportunities to include it in future work as we build out this project further. So thank you so much. And hopefully we see some of that knowledge in the questionnaire too. All right, I see one more question in the Q&A. I will read it out, but we'll open it up to all the panelists in case anyone else has some additional insights. The question is, how about we older lawyers, seniors like me, who do not regularly use computers and regularly access computer systems to perform the work or solve problems? What should we be careful about if we are faced with AI challenges? I'm a public interest lawyer in the field of real estate and land use, and I'm concerned about how AI might become a regular tool in the public sectors, making important land use decisions affecting low-income or marginalized communities. Anyone have initial impressions on that before I jump in with some of my own?
I think this is a really good question, because what we're trying to find out is information. I'm thinking even in terms of the question itself and what you said about yourself, you should take the survey and say that, because we're trying to find out what's happened. It's not just what AI, artificial intelligence, automated systems are out there. We're also trying to find out how lawyers have encountered them and what they have done and the issues they've confronted. So even though you don't use a computer, in your work, you may encounter public agencies that do. And that are using artificial intelligence. And you may not know, it's a part of this is that you may not know, but just been finding out how decisions are made. So you involved in a case and an agency has rendered a decision. How was that decision reached? You may discover that, yes, they use some sort of automated system to help them make that decision. So it's not your personal use of computer, necessarily use of it, is what you encounter as a lawyer. But I do think you're saying where you are is something that would be very valuable to have in the question, and the lawyers to say that, again, because we like to develop programs, things that could help you figure out when you have encountered artificial intelligence.
I think that was a wonderful answer. I have very little else to add. So if anyone else has anything that they would like to add in response to Leonard's question, feel free. Otherwise, we can move on. All right. Leonard, if you have additional questions or you don't think that we fully answered your question, please just let one of us know and we'll get back to it. We have a technical question from Althea. What mediums are being utilized to market the survey widespread to attorneys? I may hand this one off to Ali.
Hi, everyone. Ali Kielsgaard here, Associate Director of the section. Specifically for this survey, we're using email marketing, social media marketing, and we're uplifting it through our website and hoping to have other ABA entities share with their networks as well. We've also explored related organizations and reached out to their contacts to try to forward this survey along so that we can get as much participation as possible. If you have any recommendations or if you'd like the materials to share with your networks, please reach out to me or crsj@americanbar.org. I'll paste that into the chat. We'd love to share the materials with you so that you can share widely with your networks as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ali. I see a question about hiring algorithms. So the question is, would it be possible for a panelist to provide some explanation regarding the parameters around the scope of what makes up AI in the hiring process? For example, a well-known company may require an online test prior to accepting employment applications. It would seem this is a personality assessment rather than a skills assessment. If the company does not like the outcome, the candidate is not considered for employment. Would this be considered the use of AI, or is this an open question? The short answer is this is valuable information to provide in the questionnaire, but I will do my best to provide the information that we have going in. So each specific issue area section will start off with a short explainer of what sorts of systems we have seen already, to provide a bit of a framework for answering questions. So when it comes to hiring and employment, this is something that may use AI. Without knowing more about how it's being done, it can be difficult to understand. But the goal of the questionnaire is to tease out examples of things that may actually be used through automated systems, even if we're not sure. So AI may be used to match applicants to job listings. It may be used to evaluate employees. It may, as you mentioned, be used to test certain skills or personality traits in ways that can be impactful for low-income and marginalized communities. So I think this is the exact type of information that we would love to look into. If you have more information or want to discuss a specific example you're seeing in your work, the questionnaire is a wonderful place to put that. We will only be using it for research purposes, so none of this will be used to, out a company. This is just a valuable way of guiding how we think about AI in different contexts. So the short answer to your question is the lawyerly answer that we always say, which is it depends. But in this case, it depends is a great way of saying please include it in the questionnaire. I hope that answered some of your questions, but this is a very broad topic. So really any information you have can help build out the information that we have. And I would look at some of the sections of the questionnaire for more examples of what these automated systems could look like.
Greg, can I add to that? So in that context, we're not just interested in the lawyer who represents the person who was denied a job or the lawyer who represents employees. We're also hoping that lawyers who represent the employer who were involved in the procurement and implementation of the AI. This is the same as with those public agencies. When they decide to use some sort of automated system and lawyers are involved in the procurement of it or how it's going to be used, we hope that they too will respond, because we're trying to find out what's out there, what's happening.
The Q&A box is still open. I will look for more questions there. But one additional point to raise about the questionnaire is that we are hoping at this stage to close it at the end of August. So we have an ideal deadline of the end of August for receiving all of our responses. We don't think the questionnaire will take that long. It will range from 8 to 20 minutes or so, depending on how many sections you choose. Most people, we believe, will be able to answer this survey under 10 minutes. So please feel free to take it whenever you have a free moment. But at the very latest, we hope to have all of our responses by the end of August, and you will receive a reminder or two in your email inboxes about that. I see the question from Jackson. Thank you, Jackson. The question is, effective the 1st of July, New York City law requires that all employers, et cetera, using AI methods to screen, hire, and promote to obtain and post on its website official audit reports to prove lack of bias in race and gender. This isn't exactly the question, but it is a valuable insight about the things that we're looking for. So every section of the questionnaire has an optional text box asking for any laws or regulations that you know about that may impact the automated systems that we're seeing today. This is the perfect example of something to include in there. It is also a really valuable insight if you have expertise on the law to build on that in the questionnaire. So thank you so much for pointing that out. This is exactly the kind of thing that would be useful to have in the questionnaire too.
While we're pausing here, I would be remiss if I did not also mention that Alec Hilstein, our CRSJ technical advisor on everything, has been absolutely the most help in putting together this survey and making it possible for us to bring it out to all of you.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. I'm very happy to help. And as I mentioned in the chat, if there are any questions about the survey or sharing with your networks, please do send me an email. I've dropped my email address in the chat, and I'd love to assist anyone who needs help.
I don't see additional questions in the Q&A box now. I'm happy to stay on for any additional questions we have. But again, as Ali pointed out, please reach out to us if you have direct questions, and please visit ambar.org/AI to learn more about the project and take the survey yourself. There is one additional question that came in, which is whether the questionnaire/survey will be worldwide to all ABA members or just in the US, thinking about EU specifically. Does anyone want to take the first stab at that question?
I will just say that if you know of anyone worldwide that you would like to forward the survey to and urge them to respond to it, we would greatly appreciate that.
Yes, I think that's exactly the scope of it. While some of the questions are written with a US audience in mind, none of them are specifically US focused. So we would be open to perspectives from other countries and would love to hear more about how the EU and other areas of the world are considering the impacts of AI. All right, seeing no additional questions, I may pass it back to Ali or Ruben to finish us up.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining us for this free webinar. We'd again like to express our gratitude for this esteemed group of panelists. You are all doing such critical work, and we thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to share your experiences, and for the attendees for taking the time to fill out our survey. The section of Civil Rights and Social Justice provides free webinars and resources for legal professionals and advocates nationwide. We hope that this helps in your work. And again, if you can, please consider joining and becoming an active member in ABA. You may do so at americanbar.org/CRSJ. Best of luck in your work and stay safe, everyone. We will be on the call for a little bit if you need any help or have any further questions.